Now, the Hunt Palmer Show.
Yes! I feel like I've been waiting for this my entire life.
You're listening to the Hunt Palmer Show on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Jolly good fun. Jolly good.
Locking down the middle of the day.
America's favorite daytime fun show.
Live from the Mercedes-Benz of Baton Rouge studio. This is Hunt Palmer.
Hunt Palmer coming to you from the Mercedes-Benz of Baton Rouge studio downtown in the capital city on this Monday. Means we're brought to you by Gulf Coast Office Products. Hope your work week's off to a good start. Hopefully not working. National holiday today for Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And a lot of folks not working tomorrow as the weather is going to impact us here in South Louisiana. We will be taking the day off locally, and we'll reassess things coming up on Wednesday. So kind of going to be a helter-skelter week, but there's a ton to talk about, and we're here to do it over the next 2 hours. Got Jacob Beck and Jordan Kitchens back there on the ones and twos, and fired up. You're hanging out with us here on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge. We'll talk to Denton Day at the bottom of hour number 2. Denton, of course, Washington Commanders fan. Good weekend to be a Washington Commanders fan. That's not something I've said very much over the 4 years of this show, but it is good to be a Commanders fan. We'll talk to him about Jaden Daniels and Washington. Move on to the NFC Championship game, the rest of the NFL playoffs. Of course, we will crown a national champion in college football tonight as well. I'm going to squeeze some baseball into this show at the end of hour number 1, so be sure you're hanging around for that. But we'll start the same way we start each and every day. That's with our Genesis opening drive.
It's time for Hunt's opening drive, presented by Genesis of Baton Rouge.
We're going to start with LSU basketball, and then we'll probably leave that in the rearview mirror for the rest of the show. It's the local angle. We'll talk about it, and then we'll move kindly on. But LSU did play a basketball game Saturday night in College Station, and the Tigers were beaten by 11. 68-57 was the final against Texas A&M. It's a game where LSU's flaws showed up in a big way, and credit Texas A&M for making that happen. But it is what it is with this team at this point. I talked about it last week. They win the game on Tuesday against Arkansas, but to do that, you needed Cam Carter to really be great offensively, and he's really the heartbeat of the offense. Without him, there's really no life, and he struggled on Saturday. He comes away with 16 points, but he was 5 of 13 from the floor, and a lot of his scoring came a little bit too little, too late. And outside of Cam Carter, your starting lineup was inept offensively. You had Curtis Givens go 2 of 7 from the floor for 6 points. Jai Bailey did kind of what he does, 3 of 6 from the floor for 7 points. Damian Collins scored 4 points and had 4 fouls. And Corey Chess didn't score. He didn't even take a shot. So that's the rest of your starting lineup coming up with 17 points in the game. Cam Carter 16, starters 17. And it caused LSU to go into a massive drought. They did not make a field goal for nearly 8 minutes in the game, from the 14:08 mark to the 7:16 mark in the game. They, in that point, had 6 turnovers and 5 missed shots. That, with some quick math, suggests that they had more possessions that didn't end with a shot than did end with a shot. They're just incapable of finding any other scoring punch when Cam Carter and, quite frankly, Jordan Sears aren't humming. And while Sears doesn't start, he came off the bench, and he, in the game, went 1 of 8 from the floor, 1 of 7 from 3. So there's just no offensive punch there. LSU fought. They scrapped and clawed. They got to the break tied. It was a 3-point game with 8 minutes to go. Like, they were hanging around because they did a really good job in the first half of limiting Texas A&M's offensive rebounding. A&M only had 5 offensive rebounds in the first half, and they didn't result in any points. And that, we said on Friday, is really the only way that A&M can score. They have the worst field goal percentage in the SEC, but they're the best offensive rebounding team in the nation. And LSU kept them off the offensive boards in the first half. But in the second half, A&M got to the offensive glass. They had 9 offensive rebounds in the second half. And LSU's biggest bugaboo finally bit with 18 turnovers in the game. And Texas A&M was able to convert those into 19 points and pull away from LSU, who couldn't keep up offensively. Wade Taylor did return to action for Texas A&M. That's a guy who's been an all-league player twice, but he had missed some 3 games with knee tightness. He wasn't great, 3 of 13 from the floor, but he did dish out 4 assists, and A&M was plus while he was on the floor. But it was just LSU is not good enough on offense to keep up. And ultimately, that was the story of the game. It's a team that desperately needs Jalen Reed's punch in the front court. They don't have it, so you've got Damian Collins and Corey Chest that don't do a heck of a lot. And then you've got an offense that just doesn't create enough good shots outside of Cam Carter. So when he plays well, LSU will be in good shape. When he doesn't, that's the result. 57 points and an 11-point loss. This is the game, in my opinion, that kind of finishes the job. It's just very difficult for me to see them winning. I think the next 2 games are the toughest 2 games probably remaining on their schedule, at Alabama, and then number 1 Auburn comes to the PMAC. At that point, you'll be 1-6 in league play, and to really consider making the NCAA tournament. I realize that even bringing that up makes people roll their eyes at this point, because you're looking at a team that has not been all that competitive in 4 of their SEC games. But you go to 1-6, and you're trying to get to 7-11. So at that point, you'd have to go 6-5, win more than you lose down the stretch, and that's just not realistic for this LSU basketball team. I think if you could have found a way to go beat Texas A&M, who's not a great offensive team, and that you've had success against over the last couple of years, if you could find a way to win that game, I can start trying to work the numbers a little bit. But at this point, it really doesn't work. There are too many significant flaws on this team to suggest that they have the ability to turn it around. I think there will be nights where Cam Carter goes for 25 points and makes 4 or 5 threes, and at that point, you can be very competitive with some of the teams in this league. You can play with South Carolina. You can probably play with Mississippi State if it's on your home floor. You play Texas A&M again. That's a game that you can play with. You got Arkansas coming up. There are some games, if they get all the ingredients firing, that they can be competitive in. But more often than not, teams are going to do whatever they can to take Cam Carter away, make him work really, really hard. And in the end, that's what Texas A&M did, and LSU doesn't have a way. They don't have a second pitch. They don't have a counter punch. They've just got what they got, because you've got too many guys on the floor with Givens, Jai Bailey, Damian Collins, Corey Chest, Robert Miller, Derek Fountain. None of these guys can really get their own shot. None of those guys can go get you 20 points on a given day. They don't have that kind of offensive capability. So maybe you get Victorious Miller back and he can give you something. But so far in SEC play, he hasn't really shown that either. So it's really disappointing. I'm not gonna apologize for feeling pretty good about the way things went in November and early December. I feel like there was reason for optimism with this team. But once Reed went down, that was in the Florida State game. They did enough to win that day. But you look at it now and you kind of understand what they are and what they're up against in this league. And quite frankly, you're a bottom 3 team in the SEC, and I think that's probably where you'll stay the rest of the way. So it's disappointing, because they looked like they had some really good stuff going on early, but a little bit's fool's gold, because Florida State's not very good and Kansas State's not very good, and Central Florida's not very good, and those are the games you were kind of hanging your hat on, and none of those teams would be overly competitive in the SEC, and that's where LSU finds itself, and each game is just difficult. You're coming off the floor against a team that's ranked in the top 15 on the road, and the next 2 teams you play are ranked in the top 4. So it's just merciless, and I've seen LSU basketball teams that are worse than this one, significantly worse, I think. But this is just the wrong year to be a pretty mediocre team, and that's kind of what you are. So it was good to see him fight. It was good to get to the half tied. It was good to get to the 8-minute mark, feeling like you really had a chance. But when you go almost 8 minutes without a field goal, and over the course of that time you turn the ball over more than you miss shots, it's just not enough. And that was the case for LSU in College Station. Texas A&M wins it 68-57. LSU is in the part of the schedule here where you get a little open date. That's with the league gets that for everybody. So LSU is not going to play this week. They'll have a chance to practice, see if they can get Victorious Miller a little healthier. And then you go to Alabama on Saturday with Auburn coming in next week. So no LSU basketball games this week until Saturday when they go to Tuscaloosa, which has not been great to LSU when LSU's got its good or better team than Alabama, when Alabama's a lot better. It's It's hard to find a lot of optimism for that one, but that's the next thing up for LSU basketball coming up on Saturday. That's our Genesis opening drive brought to you by Genesis of Baton Rouge. Still plenty to do here on this Monday edition. We're presented by Gulf Coast Office Products. All your printing, scanning, copying needs is all there at Gulf Coast Office Products. Trey Beal is an awesome dude, and they've got a fantastic company over there. If you're a business, you got printer, scanner, copier, but do you know why you have the unit that you have? Do you know what's out there? Do you know what capabilities you don't know about? That's where the expertise from the guys at Gulf Coast Office Products come in. No matter what industry you're in, they've got clients in that vertical market, whether you're in healthcare, whether you're in banking, whether you're in education, whether you're in law, whatever the case may be, they've got clients. They know what you will need over there with your printing, scanning, and copying. It's Gulf Coast Office Products. You can find them online at gcopnet.com, gcopnet.com. All right, we'll leave basketball in the rearview mirror. What a weekend it was in the National Football League. Jaden Daniels moving on to the conference championship games. Let's talk about that coming up next.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Genesis of Baton Rouge, genesisofbatonrouge.com is that website. Every car on the lot is online at genesisofbatonrouge.com. Every new purchase comes with a 10-year, 100,000-mile warranty. 10-year, 100,000-mile warranty. That's some significant peace of mind there. How about 3 years of complimentary maintenance? That's all part of the buy-in at Genesis of Baton Rouge. If you haven't gotten behind the wheel of a Genesis, I just strongly encourage you to put it on your list. You may not think about it. When you think luxury vehicles, you may think of some other brands. Genesis is new to the game, but I can promise you, you'll see the difference when you sit behind that wheel with one of their brand ambassadors. If you don't have time to go to the dealership, they can come to you. Fantastic, fantastic convenience. It's all part of the process at Genesis of Baton Rouge. Check them out online, genesisofbatonrouge.com, genesisofbatonrouge.com.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Gulf Coast Office Products.
Quite a weekend in the National Football League. I watched a ton of NFL football over this weekend, and certainly the highlight for us on a local perspective was Jaden Daniels and the Washington Commanders going to Detroit, taking down the 1 seed, 45-31. I mean, I've got a lot of thoughts on this game, but I think you would be disingenuous if you led with anything other than the fact that you can't win when you turn the ball over 5 times and the other team never gives it away. And that, to me, I think is probably the most impressive thing about Jaden Daniels. It's not the speed. It's not the big plays. Well, all that's great. It's the fact that he just doesn't seem to make a mistake. And we saw it here in Baton Rouge. I mean, towards the end of the season, really after the Mississippi State game 2 years ago, like he was almost perfect. But you don't know if that's going to translate to the NFL, and oftentimes it doesn't. But you're hearing not like one person. I just read Chase Daniels said it earlier today. We've seen it from Dan Orlovsky and Mike Greenberg. This is considered the greatest rookie run in the sports history by multiple people who were paid to talk about this. It's been incredible. Famously, Peyton Manning struggled in his first year, turned the ball over a ton. The Colts didn't win a lot of games. Joe didn't have, an earth-shattering first year coming out of LSU, and then he got hurt towards the end of it, so that was cut short. But he looks playing against the 1 seed in the divisional playoffs like he did playing a non-conference rent-a-win in Tiger Stadium. It's just complete poise, total control, heartbeat never too high, big plays, tons of points, no mistakes. It's just remarkable. The Lions in this game ran for 201 yards and threw it for 320 more and still lost by 2 scores. And that's because you turned the ball over. And Jaden, to his credit, just cool as could be. 22 of 31, throws for 299 yards, so a tick under 300, 2 touchdowns, never sacked, no turnovers, no fumbles, needs to run. He runs 16 times for 51 yards. Washington is being uber aggressive. And I'll say, I didn't love it in Tampa and it paid off, and I didn't love it again in this game, continuing to go for touchdowns down there in the red zone in 4th and short situations. But it's working. And the analytics say to do it, and Dan Quinn is doing it, and it's working. I mean, they implicitly trust Jaden Daniels to continue to make play after play after play, and he makes play after play after play. This game ultimately was decided because Denver turned the ball over 5 times and Washington didn't, as I said, but that still doesn't take anything away from just how great Jaden Daniels has been. I think that ultimately this run is going to end in the next 2 games because their defense to me just is not quite good enough to win as many games as you need to in the playoffs. But if Jaden continues to go out there and score 45 points, they'll have a chance. His defense chipped in with 1 defensive score. But I'm amazed that Jaden Daniels is able to do this consistently at that level. There just didn't even seem to be an adjustment for him. It was a continuation of his time at LSU. And I was thinking about this in thinking about Jaden Daniels yesterday. There were a lot of LSU fans that wanted to change quarterbacks entering the 2023 season. Jaden holds on to the ball too long, doesn't get it down the field. You're not using the great playmakers that you got. Nussmeier's a gunslinger. Did you see him in that Georgia game? He'll open up the offense, and that's natural that the backup quarterback is going to be the popular guy. And yes, Jaden hadn't become the superstar that he would eventually become, so the circumstances were a little bit different. But it gave me a little bit of perspective in knowing just how difficult it is to please fans. Because you had one of the great players in the sport who became the greatest player in the college sport just months later. And a lot of people in the fan base wanted to move on. And you just have to realize that that's going to be how things work. There's always a better option. It's always somebody's fault. And fans are always looking for something that's a shortcoming. That struck me as I was thinking about this run that Jaden has been on. But he was something else in that game up there in Detroit. I'm not too involved and invested in Washington's success to completely dismiss Detroit and what those fans must feel like today. Because if you're a Lions fan, the ratio between disappointment, misery, and happiness is like 98-2. Like there's just, no matter how old the Lions fan is, if they're 14 or 68, you just haven't had much to be happy about. You got 2 of the greatest talents in the history of the sport, and they quit before they turned 30 because they were sick of playing for the Lions. Megatron and Barry Sanders, obviously. But there just has not been almost any optimism in that fan base for decades and decades and decades. And it was obvious all season how good they were and how great a chance they had to reach the Super Bowl for the first time and to potentially win the Super Bowl. And you get 1 home playoff game, and a rookie quarterback comes in and really runs you off your own field. I mean, it's a 14-point game, but it didn't really feel that close. Washington scored 28 points in the second quarter alone. And that's just a gut-wrenching way for the Lions season to ultimately end. But Jared Goff throws 3 picks. You put the ball on the ground twice. Just not gonna get it done. Cool reverse play, though. And so the question now with the Lions is what's next for Ben Johnson and what's next for Aaron Glenn. And I'm curious if Saints fans watching that game looked at that and go, I don't want Aaron Glenn. Look at that. It's, that's the lasting impression that you've got. But we'll see, what happens over the next week. I think a lot of people felt like Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn would be coaching for another week or 3. And now they're available to start talking to teams in person. And I would imagine that's going to happen pretty quickly.
Yeah, and Adam Schefter is reporting that he says Johnson and Glenn will have jobs no later than the middle of this week, apparently.
That sounds to me like the Jets want Aaron Glenn. He's going to meet with them in person. Nick Underhill of New Orleans Football has suggested that. So I think Glenn probably tomorrow will meet with the Jets. If there's an agreement there, he'll be the next head coach. If not, the report is, I guess I should say, that he would continue on to New Orleans on Wednesday. So we'll see. I'm not sure what the travel situation is going to be like with the weather that's going on down here. But Aaron Glenn will certainly be moving along, and we'll see what that means for the New Orleans Saints moving forward. I wanted to talk about the other games as well. Certainly, a lot of highlights from the weekend that was, and last night. I mean, I'll tell you all this. Like, my wife does not give a rip about sports, just not at all. She was a Saints fan when Drew Brees was in a bajillion games. She liked that part of it when she was living in New Orleans, but she hadn't been to an LSU game in years and doesn't watch the Saints anymore, and she just doesn't care about sports. I tell you that to tell you that last night she was watching Ravens-Bills because I was in there watching and Myers was watching, and she reacted to the Mark Andrews drop. She doesn't ever care about sports. She felt horrible. That was gutting. Mark Andrews has been one of the best tight ends in the sport for years. And he puts the ball on the ground in the middle of the field in a crucial spot. Great punch play, but in a crucial spot. And then on the Mason Taylor, Alabama play, they run him into the flat. Beautiful call. And he just drops it. And that's just brutal to watch. A guy who's had that much success in his career. And all I could think about last night was like, oh my gosh, that organization has got 60-plus players with the team and the practice squad, all those coaches, support staffers who have been lacing them up and going since August 1st. And the entire season comes down to one catch of the football. And he dropped it. Like that, the entire organization. I realize it's like a kind of a warped way to look at it and like maybe a little bit dramatic, but seriously, like at that point, the season's over because you didn't catch a ball that you catch 99 out of 100. Couldn't make the play. I thought it was the proper play by the Bills to kick that field goal on 4th and 2. You got under 4 minutes to go. You make it 8. You make it to where they've got to drive the field and score a touchdown and get the 2-point conversion. You're going to have to stop them one way or another. I thought going up 8 there was the proper thing to do. And it ended up paying off because they couldn't stop Lamar, but the Ravens couldn't get it done at the end of the game. And it sends the Bills to Kansas City next week. The Eagles beat the Rams 28-22. I've got a take on this game. Beck and Jordan, y'all are football guys. I'm curious to hear what you think about this. I know this is an old man yells at cloud deal. I get it, but it's just the way I feel. I don't like when these massive games are so massively affected by the weather. Like, that's not real football. You got DBs that can't pivot. It's hard to hold on to the ball. Like, I realize people love it. It looks cool on TV, and they can heat the field so you can see but you got guys out there on ice skates trying to play football in the most meaningful games of the year. That doesn't do it for me. I'd rather watch them play in a dome. That's just my old man yells at cloud take. I just feel like you work on things, and the game is played one way all year, and then you get into the playoffs where we play the most important stuff with the best teams, and we got guys kicking ice around. I don't like that.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. It's unfortunate. I'm not going to say that the Ravens wouldn't have lost if they were playing in a dome. Maybe they wouldn't have. It's hard not to say that.
Exactly, but I just think you can just watch the game, and it's not the same.
You can, it's definitely different, and like you said too, it would be one thing if this was happening early in the season, and then later in the playoffs that it wasn't happening. But this is usually happening most of the time only in the playoffs because it's so late in the year and the weather is so bad in these. And it's also partly because we have these teams like the Bills and the Ravens and the Chiefs that play in, they usually have weather affected. It's if it was the Dolphins, we wouldn't have to worry about it. But because these teams are so good, we see it every year now, so it's just becoming more prevalent.
Do you like games in the snow?
Well, the way I'm looking at it, Hunt, maybe our view is so warped because we're from the South. Like we're not used to this because when you hear people like the people of Buffalo, because Buffalo's been a new stadium. Why are they not building a dome?
They should. If I was commissioner, they'd be building a dome.
Exactly.
But I'm not.
But they don't want to build a dome, so it's like they love it. We hate it. I'm not that concerned with the fans. They can dress for that. They know what it's like to go out there when it's 8 degrees. They got jackets and they got hand warmers and the whole deal. It just compromises the play to me. It does compromise the play.
Got wide receivers out there trying to make breaks, and like it's ice. It just to me is I don't love it. It's not, I think it's.
I don't love it either.
It's the only sport that we have where we let the weather be a big deal. In a baseball game, you call it. Golf, they pull you off the course. Basketball, obviously inside. Like it's. I don't know. I'm not worried about the fans and the enjoyment of it, and they can get there and all. Like in Buffalo, they want to go. Shovel snow off the bleachers the day before. That's fine. But just in terms of the actual play on the field, I don't love it. It looks, and I was sure to look at the weather forecast for Philly coming up on Sunday with Washington going there. It is going to be cold. It's going to be like the 20s. That's fine. It is not going to snow. So we're going to get reasonable weather conditions in that game. The Chiefs beat the Texans in the early Saturday game, 23-14. Just classic Chiefs football. It was not the prettiest thing you've ever seen in your life, but Mahomes made the plays he needed to. Kelsey scores a touchdown because he always scores a touchdown. Mahomes throws for 177 yards, but the Chiefs' defense is awesome, and they held Houston down, held them to 14 points. Mixon never really got going. His long carry of the day was 13 yards, and Stroud, was okay, but he got sacked 8 times because the Chiefs are awesome on defense, and they've done so much credit goes to the Chiefs because we talk all the time about how hard it is to build the team once you dump the massive contract on the quarterback. The Bengals had Burrow on the rookie deal. They go to the big contract. Defense takes a huge step back. They fire the defensive coordinator. Like, they've got to figure out how to work that roster with Burrow and Chase making massive amounts of money. Mahomes gets the huge deal. And what does Kansas City do? Well, they got to get rid of Tyreek Hill, and there are some weapons that go by the wayside, but they build an incredible defense. That is great organizational strength. It's great vision, and it's paying off. None of these wins look pretty. And you look up, and I'm not going to count the last week when they sat everybody. They're 15-1. It's 16-1 now. 16-1 is incredible in the NFL, and the Chiefs deserve a ton of credit for that. So, be an awesome matchup between Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes in Kansas City, and we'll get Jaden up in Philly next week. So, cool stuff in the NFL. I think it's been awesome. There's a pretty big game tonight in college football. Let's talk about the national final when we come back.
The Hunt Palmer Show. This is The Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Gulf Coast Office Products.
All right, I'm going to squeeze some baseball into the back end of this hour. There's been some topic of discussion on the infield, and I'll give you kind of my thoughts on that for LSU at the end of this hour, so about 10 minutes from right now. Let's preview the national championship game, Notre Dame and Ohio State. Quickly to y'all too, has the playoff lasted too long? Is January 20th too deep into the month to play a college football national championship game?
No, go ahead.
Yes, 100%. Yes, I hated that it's so long.
It's felt very long, to be honest with you. Like, it feels like the playoffs started a month and a half ago.
It was a month ago. I mean, you're talking about right there at the in the middle of December. So it's been a long process. I don't know that I've thought it's too long. It does feel like LSU has not played in decades.
Yeah.
So I get that perspective, but like it's not. I don't think it's going to. I loved watching the semifinals, and I'm excited to watch tonight. So I'm not. I don't think I'm not too anti on that. I'm excited to watch the game tonight. I do have strong feelings on the game, and I think that's not going to be a surprise to most of you that have listened to me. I'm the anti-Hester here, and we'll both die on the hills. I like 4 stars. I like 5 stars. I like first rounders, and I think Ohio State's got a ton of them, and I don't think Notre Dame has very many of them. I was looking at ESPN's top 5 players at every position for this coming draft. And obviously, that doesn't include guys that are younger. So it's not a perfect metric. It's just the guys that are draft eligible this year. But Ohio State, guys that are top 5 in this coming draft at their position, you got Travion Henderson and Quinshon Judkins at running back. You've got Emeka Egbuka at defensive end. You've got Josh Simmons at offensive tackle, Donovan Jackson at offensive guard, Seth McLaughlin at center, even though he's not playing, so this one doesn't count. But you've got, and I can't say this guy's name, JT Tuimoiau on the edge, whatever. He's in the top 5 edge players.
Buka's a receiver, isn't he? I thought, though.
Yeah.
He's a defensive end.
Yeah. And then you've got Jack Sawyer at linebacker and Tyleek Williams at defensive tackle. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 guys that will play in this game that are the top 5 of their position for this coming draft. That doesn't even include Caleb Downs at safety. That doesn't include freak show wide receiver Jeremiah Smith. So, like, they've just got all these guys all over the field. Notre Dame has Benjamin Morrison at corner and Xavier Watts at safety, who's plagued with a shoulder injury. They've only got 2. It's 8-2, and I'm not even counting the best player on Ohio State's team, who's a freshman, isn't draft eligible for 2 years, and then Caleb Downs, who might be the second best player on the team, and he's not eligible until next year. So, like, there's just too many dudes on this Ohio State team. Listen to this. Ohio State is number 1 in the nation. Number 1 in the nation in the following categories on defense: points allowed per drive, yards per play allowed, yards per drive given up, percentage of plays that go for 10-plus yards, red zone touchdown rate against, yards per drop back, and sacks per drop back. They're the best in the country. Red zone, sacks, coverage, yards, drives, points. They're the best because they got the best dudes. And I just cannot get the image of Riley Leonard against Georgia or in the semifinal out of my head for this game. I cannot imagine that Riley Leonard is going to be able to keep up with Ohio State's offense playing against this Ohio State defense. His best passing game this year is 229 yards against Stanford. He oftentimes throws for like $170. And I get it. Like you could look at this and go, well, that's not Notre Dame's identity to throw it all over the place and score a bunch of points. They have a great defense. They have physical offensive line. They've got 2 really good running backs. They want to give it to Jeremiah Love, and they want to get downhill, and that's how they win. They don't need Riley Leonard to keep up with guys. Okay, that's fine. But when you're playing against this front and you're playing against this defense, I don't think you're just going to be able to turn around and hand it off and grind the clock and go on these long 14-play drives that take 6 minutes plus. Like, you're going to have to hit some plays. You're going to have to convert some third downs. And I just don't think Riley Leonard's very good. I know he's gritty. I know he's tough. I know he runs for 4 yards a lot on 3rd and 3. But I think you got to go score to beat Ohio State. And I just can't see Notre Dame doing that. So I like Notre Dame's defense. I believe they've got an elite defense. That defense would play in the SEC. That defense would play in the Big Ten. That defense belongs on the big stage. I just don't think Notre Dame's offense can do it. And I think they caught a break with Carson Beck not being available in the Sugar Bowl. And I just think that Ohio State's going to get things humming tonight, and I don't think that Notre Dame can keep up. I think it's somewhere in the neighborhood of 30-16, something like that. I would lay the points with Ohio State. That's the opposite of what the sharp money in Vegas is doing right now. I was talking to Moscona earlier today. He's up there in his office kind of prepping for his show. He may use this statistic later, but there's some sort of app where you can see where the sharp money, the respected money in Vegas is coming in. And the vast, vast majority of that, I think upwards of 90%, is on Notre Dame catching the 8.5. I don't know where Notre Dame money line is coming in from sharp money, but I just can't see it. Maybe they can keep it close with that defense, but I don't think so. And I've doubted Notre Dame all the way, and I'll keep doing it, and they may prove me wrong. I know there are a lot of LSU fans who are heavily invested in Notre Dame not winning. I don't really care, but I just think Ohio State's a lot better. I like the 4- and 5-star recruits. I like the first-round picks. I think that's what Ohio State did when they saw Michigan separate and win that national championship. Their boosters stood up and said, we're not dealing with this. They go to the SEC. They get Caleb Downs. They go to the SEC. They get Quinshon Judkins. They've got already a really solid kind of foundation with Travion Henderson and Josh Simmons and with Jack Sawyer, who's just a Buckeye through and through. And this roster is just better than everybody else's. And Tennessee found that out, and Oregon found that out, and I think that Notre Dame finds that out this evening. But I'm excited to watch. I'll get y'all's thoughts on it. Do either one of you think that Notre Dame's got a fighting chance to stay in and win this game?
Not really. If you just look at, we can just look at the path that Notre Dame has had so far in this playoff. They played Indiana, who was just overmatched in that game. And
no 4- and 5-star recruits, no first-round picks.
And then they played Georgia, who was down a quarterback,
Yep.
and that was very apparent. I mean, the Georgia only put 10 points up. And then the Penn State game, that was a pretty impressive performance by Notre Dame in that game. Penn State has some guys. They have players that are going to be in the NFL in the next few years, and so that was a good win for Notre Dame.
And Leonard made a couple throws.
He did.
In that game.
He did.
He turned it over a couple times, but he made some throws.
But Ohio State, to me, has more talent than Penn State does, and I can't see Notre Dame I can't see them scoring enough to be able to keep up with Ohio State. In this game.
The only path I see for Notre Dame involves 3 turnovers.
There's got to be turnovers. Yeah.
They've got to get 3 turnovers, and one of them's probably got to go back the other way. Strip sack, they pick up, tip pass that goes the other way. That to me is the only path. You see a way for Notre Dame?
I don't see. It's not. I don't see a way for them. I just can't have Notre Dame winning. I can't do an off-season Brian Kelly talk of well, look, Brian Kelly's gone. Notre Dame's a winner finally. Like I for my personal preferences, I just can't do that, Hunt. So I need Ohio State to thump them.
And I'll say this. I will say this. We can talk about Notre Dame's path all we want. We can talk about that being a light schedule that they put together because they're not in the conference. We can talk about nice breaks in the playoff. If they beat Ohio State, you have to put the narratives to bed because Ohio State is that dude. That is to be the man, you got to beat the man. I hate that saying. I don't believe in it, but it just so happens the man did show up for Notre Dame. They didn't get some sort of deal where you got to play a lesser team in the final. Like you got the big bad wolf. Like this is the best roster in college football. So if Marcus Freeman wins this game tonight, you can definitively say that he raised Notre Dame to a level that Brian Kelly could not.
100%.
And that doesn't mean that Brian Kelly can't win at LSU. It just means that Freeman will have done something. I'm not giving you credit for beating Indiana. That's not going to do it. The backup quarterback does matter in the Sugar Bowl, and nice job against a Penn State program that's never won on the big stage either. But you can talk your way around those. You beat Ohio State in Atlanta. I'm done. You've done what you needed to do, and that's it. I feel there's got to be a little bit of disappointment's probably too strong a word. I'm not sure what I'm looking for, but Marcus Freeman's got to be a little bummed that the biggest day of his professional life is against his alma mater. That's the jersey that he put on. That's he was a proud team captain, played for national championship 2 times at Ohio State, lost both of them against Florida and against LSU. He was on that team in 2007. I saw a little interaction yesterday between Hester and Marcus Freeman where Hester asked Freeman a question. He was at the podium, and Freeman said, I've gotten to this stage, and I lost twice, once to you, looking at Hester. So that's got to be a little disappointing. I think if you're an LSU fan, you're listening to me, and you think you take a great job and you get an opportunity to coach it, or whatever the case may be, and you show up to try to win a championship for the first time, and your alma mater, it's on the other side. That's got to be tough. But for tonight, Marcus Freeman will put that on the back border, and he'll try to go win a title for Notre Dame. I like the Buckeyes. I like the Buckeyes to cover, but we'll certainly break it down on maybe Wednesday's show, because tomorrow we will be off for the weather. All right, I teased it a couple times in this hour, so we'll step aside and come back when we close out hour number 1. Been talking about the LSU baseball infield. I've gotten a lot of questions about it, and I'll tell you where I think things stand as they get ready to start practice coming up on Friday. We'll do some LSU baseball talk when we come back.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Audio Video Security Solutions, avssla.com is the website. And for us in the Palmer house, we trust Audio Video Security Solutions with our burglar alarm and with our security cameras. And they did a phenomenal job on the installation. I've got 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, the app right here that I can always look at the front door, always look at the back door from anywhere and see where how things are looking. I can always go back and rewind. I can pause. There are no cloud storage fees that I've got to pay. And I told you all the story a couple of weeks ago, and we decided we wanted to put a keypad also by the back door and in our bedroom so that we can hear when a door may open, because the Myers man can now open doors. Well, now we've got that installed in the bedroom, and it took 1 day. Called Mitchell, said, hey, we'd like to put another keypad in the bedroom. Like, okay. It was over the next day. Done. Took like 30 minutes. That's the kind of customer service you get from a quality local company like Audio Video Security Solutions. avssla.com is the website. You can follow on Instagram at avss_BR. Audio Video Security Solutions, avssla.com.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Gulf Coast Office Products.
Monday show is brought to you by Gulf Coast Office Products, gcopnet.com, gcopnet.com for all your printing, scanning, copying needs. It's Gulf Coast Office Products. If you missed this a little bit earlier, we will be off tomorrow as a station. Everybody's going to stay home and ride out the weather. Maybe some snowmans being built at the Abear and Hester homes, respectively. I'm not sure how the 3-year-old Myers man is going to handle the snow situation tomorrow. We're going to purchase some gloves on the way home from the show today, and we'll see if he wants to give it a go. If he doesn't, we want to stay inside all day. We can do that too, but no local shows tomorrow for ESPN Baton Rouge. We'll reassess things for Wednesday. I want to talk a little bit of baseball. The internet has been kind of a buzz about LSU's infield, and I wrote about this in my fall recap, but it feels at that time it felt like all 3 of the spots opposite Jarrett Jones were kind of up for grabs. And what I wrote in my fall preview was, I know that Braswell and Milam are back, but that doesn't mean they're cemented in their places. Braswell played shortstop, obviously, for LSU all year last year, and Milam won the second base job. Those were not etched in stone. And what it felt like was that Daniel Dickinson was likely to be the second baseman, and Braswell and Milam would take a look to see who the shortstop would be, and then the other one would move to third base. And I've heard now, because Jay Johnson is in, the speaking circuit portion of this. He's doing a lot of different podcasts. You search YouTube, search his name. He's sat down with Matuk and the boys. He's done a couple of national college baseball podcasts. And he has suggested multiple times in multiple different podcasts that he believes that Stephen Milam is the best defensive infielder that LSU has. That, to me, is an indication that right now, on January 20th, that Stephen Milam is LSU's shortstop. Now, they have 4 weeks of practice that could shift things. If Milam goes out there and is kicking it all over the place defensively, you know that you have Braswell to fall back on, who did an admirable job at shortstop last year for LSU. I don't know if it was elite, but it was good enough. He doesn't have great range. He doesn't have a cannon of an arm, but he made enough plays after getting off to a really bumpy start. Defensively, he was better down the stretch. So you've got a guy you can fall back on. But right now, I think that very much the plan for LSU moving into preseason practice is for Braswell to play third, Milam to play short, and Dickinson to play second base. Those can all change. You can move things around. We have seen this many, many times. But I think that is the plan right now. And so a lot of folks have been kind of looking at this and suggesting, well, Dickinson's going to play third base, and Milam's been great at second, and Braswell's already played shortstop. And that may be the way things shake out. You never really know. But I think that right now the plan is Dickinson second, Milam at short, and then Braswell over at third. How do I think that looks? I think it looks fine. I think Braswell is got enough range to play third base. I think his hands are good enough to play third base. I think he's got enough arm to play third base. I think Tommy White's probably a better defensive third baseman than Braswell, but I think he can do it. And I think Milam can handle shortstop as well. He doesn't have a huge arm, but his range is good. His hands are good. His feet are good. And then Dickinson at second base. He's a really, really good athlete. I'm a little bit more concerned about Dickinson's offense than I am his defense at this point. That's where he needs to really impact the team, is by swinging the bat, hitting for some power, and running the way that he can. So I think that that's the plan right now. And we'll see if something changes over the course of the next 4 weeks with practice. LSU baseball will fire things up on Friday. They'll have Jay Johnson's annual kind of media day where he'll take questions from the media for 30 or 40 minutes. LSU's players will be available, and then they'll have practice. I'll tell you all this. I'll talk some baseball, certainly, on this show, but I'm planning on being heavy on baseball on LouisianaSports.net starting on Friday. I'm going to be out at practices. I'm going to write practice reports just like we do for football in August and for spring ball, and we'll have some opinion pieces and a number of things over on LouisianaSports.net to get you ramped up for baseball season. I know this is a time of year where a lot of people in Baton Rouge are kind of tapping their feet because football's way in the rearview mirror. There's no more recruiting this time of year, and the basketball team is struggling right now, candidly. So folks are kind of looking around, and baseball is kind of the next oasis for them. Those guys will get things started on Friday. I should have a fall baseball practice report up Friday evening over at LouisianaSports.net, and I'll tell you where they've got some folks positioned on the diamond for defense. So they'll open the season on February the 14th in a day game on Friday. I think last week I said it was against Nebraska Omaha. That's later in the season. They'll actually be playing Purdue Fort Wayne in the season opening series. So that'll come at you faster than you think. It's a month away. But I wanted to kind of address that because it's been the shortstop position's been one that's been talked about a lot, and people have been kind of trying to read tea leaves. And again, things can change over the course of a month, but that's where the plan is at this current juncture. Our Monday shows are brought to you by Gulf Coast Office Products. GCOPnet.com is that website, GCOPnet.com. If you do business with the big box stores for your printers, scanners, copiers, you're just going to kind of be a line item. You give them a call. You might get some marketing center in Atlanta or something, and you don't have a great relationship, but they've got a lot of resources, a lot of capability. You do business with the mom and pop shop, you'll have their phone number. They'll know who you are. They'll call you by name, but do they have the resources to really service what you need? The beauty of Gulf Coast Office Products is they're right there in the middle. They've got $1 million on site here in Baton Rouge. They can handle things statewide here in the state of Louisiana. Got offices in New Orleans, over in Southwest Louisiana as well, with the big office here in Baton Rouge. They got plenty of capability, but they're also small enough to where you're going to know your rep. You're going to know Trey or one of his great teammates. If you call, you're going to get someone on the phone who knows who you are and knows where to direct your call. That's the beauty of Gulf Coast Office Products. It's not too small. It's not too big. It's right there in the middle, and they can help you. So all your printing, scanning, copying needs, check out the guys at Gulf Coast Office Products. They're online at gcopnet.com. Open the show today talking about LSU hoops and their loss in College Station. You can find that wherever you find your podcast, Hoops with Hunt. NFL recap, Jaden Daniels moving on to the NFC Championship game. That was at 1:15. Previewed the National Championship game at 1:30. And then a little baseball talk at the end of the hour. If you want to catch any of that, you can catch it on demand at 1045ESPN.com's On Demand tab or wherever you find your sound. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google, YouTube. Just search Hunt Palmer Show. Like, subscribe, rate, and review for all our Saints coverage. Hunt on Saints for all our LSU coverage. Hunt on LSU. Subscribe up to those channels, whether it's on YouTube or wherever you find your podcasts, and you can hear us wherever you may be. Hour 2 is coming at you. We're going to talk about the Saints. What's next for them? This is a big week where you're going to see some NFL head coaching vacancies filled. What's that for the Saints? And Denton Day talking Commanders and National Championship game at the bottom of hour number 2. Don't go anywhere. It's the Hunt Palmer Show.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
One Bath and Closets. OneBathAndClosets.com is the website. David Duvall and his team, 30 years of redesigning and remodeling bathrooms and closets. Tub to shower conversions are the thing that One Bath and Closets does the most. If you've got one of those big jacuzzi-style bathtubs that they built a lot in the 80s and 90s and you never use it, you don't get in that thing, it's taking up a lot of space. Just get rid of it. Take it out, put in a gorgeous glass walk-in shower. Totally transforms the look and the functionality of your bathroom. Add some value to your home as well. We use the bathtubs in our house. Mars Man's in there every evening. But if you don't use your bathtubs, get rid of them. Tub to shower conversions. If you're thinking, not a great time to pay for that right now. Well, they've got financing options available for you. 0% for 15 to 18 months if you qualify. Go to the website, onebathandclosets.com. Start that process with a free consultation with David Duvall and his team. It's One Bath and Closets. You can find them online at onebathandclosets.com, onebathandclosets.com.